changers. They are scholars and mentors. They are selected for their knowledge and also their moral character and alignment with a worldview that sees education as soul forming, not just skill training. So let's talk results. According to the Delaware report card for the 2023-2024 school year, 88.9% of students graduated on time with a regular high school diploma. That sounds great, right? Almost 90%. However, only 40.8% of students in grades 3 through 8 were proficient in English language arts, and just 30.7% were proficient in math. There's a clear disconnect here. Nearly 9 in 10 young people are graduating, but less than half are proficient in reading, and less than a third are proficient in math. We're advancing students without mastering the basics. When it comes to college and career readiness, 82.4% of graduating seniors were deemed ready. Yet when you break it down, 77.6% were college ready, 42% were career ready, and only 37% were college and career ready. While many students meet either the college or career benchmark individually, far few are truly prepared to succeed in both areas. This paints a picture of a system that's more focused on checking boxes than truly preparing students for life. What happens when these young people enter the workforce? What happens when they show up to jobs lacking critical thinking skills, discipline, and basic literacy? A couple years ago, I asked one of our university fellows, at the beginning of each legislative session, we have fellows that come on from either the University of Delaware or Delaware State. So I asked one of the fellows to research criminal justice reform and give me a balanced overview, both sides, pros, cons, the full picture. What I got back was a well-organized report, but every source came from one political side of the aisle. When I asked if they had considered any conservative perspectives, they said, well, those usually aren't valid. That wasn't analysis, that was regurgitation. Not because the student wasn't smart, but because she'd been taught what to think and not how to think. There was no attempt to challenge assumptions, weigh competing arguments, or dig deeper. And the lack of critical thinking doesn't just show up in research. It shows up in how they handle pressure too. It's amazing how the simplest of tasks can overwhelm these young people. I have had more than one college student come into my office saying that they need to leave for the day because of their anxiety. They are unable to complete a full day working on public policy due to anxiety. This isn't life or death work, and yet they still struggle. Then there's behavior. In 2023 alone, Delaware Public Schools recorded 12,044 out-of-school suspensions, 9,227 in-school suspensions, and 5,848 incidents of violence. That's almost 6,000 incidents of violence in 1 year. How can real learning occur in an environment marked by this type of disruption and disorder? The answer is it's not. So what's driving the decline? We've seen a shift away from classroom authority and traditional discipline. The Delaware Department of Education now heavily promotes social emotional learning and restorative justice practices. These may sound good in theory, but in practice, they often undermine teacher discretion and actually embolden disruptive behavior. Although Delaware Code technically still allows teachers to exercise discretion and discipline, the Department of Education guidelines increasingly favor ideologically driven behavior management models, making that discretion largely meaningless. This tug of war between policy and law, they're leaving our classrooms confused and inconsistent. Even the college entry process has been diluted. Institutions like Delaware Tech no longer require placement exams for reading or math. Instead, they allow students to bypass these benchmarks based on high school GPA or previous coursework. Lowering the standard doesn't raise achievement, it only lowers expectations. And once expectations drop, so does excellence. And perhaps the most visible shift, the curriculum. Once, public schools taught young people about the blessings of liberty, the sacrifices made to secure it, and the importance of preserving our freedoms. History classes emphasize both the triumphs and the flaws of our nation, inspiring gratitude and civic responsibility. Today, many students graduate knowing little about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the meaning of self-governance. But they are well-versed in critical theories that frame America as fundamentally broken. People who do not know their history or who are taught to despise it are easily manipulated. And make no mistake, this shift is not accidental. It reflects the ideology of those making education policy. In Delaware, the chair of the Senate Education Committee and retired public school teacher has openly spoken during floor debates in support of socialism and even communism as alternative systems of governance. These are ideologies that have brought suffering, oppression, and death to millions around the world. Yet they are being casually praised by those entrusted with shaping the minds of our children. When our education leaders abandon the principles of freedom and self-governance, it's no surprise that our curriculum begins to reflect those beliefs. Classical Christian education restores the proper understanding of history, one that is honest about our nation's shortcomings, but also proud of its ideals and hopeful about its future. It forms students who are not just well-educated, but who are grateful citizens capable of preserving liberty for the next generation. In public schools, we are also seeing a growing movement to center LGBTQ+ activism within the classroom. In 2022, House Concurrent Resolution 90 passed the 151st General Assembly, encouraging the teaching of LGBTQ+ history for grades 7 through 12. Topics include the Stonewall riots, the AIDS epidemic, and even the Nazi persecution of gay people. Now, on the surface, teaching historical events doesn't sound problematic. We should all learn about the aspects of history, even the difficult chapters. But when you look closer at the resolution, you see that it directs schools to rely on organizations like the Human Rights Campaign to help craft the curriculum. The Human Rights Campaign is not a neutral historical body. It is a deeply progressive advocacy group. When activist organizations are shaping how history is taught, the lessons are unlikely to focus purely on facts. We currently have a bill working its way through the General Assembly this year, Senate Bill 78, I encourage everyone to pay attention to this, which will mandate that the Department of Education align all school regulations with an expanded list of protected classes, including body size, sexual orientation, pregnancy or childbirth, gender identity, among many others. They frame this as non-discrimination, but in practice, it paves the way for compelled affirmation of beliefs that many families do not share. If this bill passes, and it looks like it does have the votes to pass at this time, teachers and students will be forced to participate in gender identity practices, including the use of preferred pronouns and allowing biological males to compete in girls' sports and access their locker rooms. Refusing to comply will be labeled as discriminatory. These are not simple rights policies. They reflect a worldview that elevates personal identity over biological reality, and that often dismisses traditional values as outdated or oppressive. We have several Delaware public schools who participate in what's called the Welcoming Schools program, which you heard Chase mention earlier. This program is created and run by the Human Rights Campaign. The Human Rights Campaign is the largest LGBTQ+ political lobbying and advocacy group in the United States. Welcoming Schools is specifically focused on training educators and developing curriculum materials around topics like LGBTQ+ inclusion, gender identity, family diversity, and preventing bias-based bullying in elementary schools. It is explicitly designed to influence school policies and classroom lessons for children at a very young age. On February 28th of this year, Welcoming Schools were encouraged to participate in a National Day of Reading. This year's theme was a celebration of trans stories. The theme was to show support and affirm transgender and non-binary youth by organizing a reading at schools, libraries, and bookstores. I want you to watch a short clip of a video. This is Delaware Congressperson Sarah McBride, who is the first openly transgender person to serve in Congress, taking part in the Welcoming Schools National Day of Reading. This video is from a couple of years ago. It's not this year. But she's reading a book about transgenderism to 5-year-old students. So this video is over 30 minutes long, the entire video. I encourage you to watch it. It's very disturbing. But towards the end of the video, McBride says to the children, and I quote, "Being transgender is different, and being different is good." This is what kids are being exposed to in Delaware public schools. In classical Christian schools, children are taught that their identity is rooted in being made in the image of God, not a fluid definition of gender or sexual orientation. Beyond identity and curriculum, there's another critical area where changes are taking root: school-based health centers. Every public high school in Delaware and some middle schools have school-based health centers. These centers offer reproductive health services, HIV testing, substance abuse counseling, and women's health care. While parental consent is required to enroll a student in the program, treatment is confidential and shielded from parents under HIPAA. Think about that. This means a teenager can receive contraceptives, STI treatment, or counseling on deeply personal issues without their parents ever being informed. Did you know that in Delaware, a child under the age of 16 can receive an abortion without parental consent? A 12-year-old girl can visit a school-based health center, discover she's pregnant, decide she wants to have an abortion, and never legally be required to obtain consent from her parents. There is even a built-in workaround about even notifying the parents entirely. Delaware law states, and I quote, "A minor under the age of 16 is required to provide at least 24 hours actual notice to one of the following individuals before obtaining an abortion: a parent, a grandparent, or a mental health professional." And remember, Delaware has invested millions to ensure that every middle school and high school has mental health professionals on staff. That's not an accident, that's by design. There's a concerning trend happening in Delaware right now. The government is stepping in where parents should have the final say, whether it's school curriculum, healthcare decisions, or even deeply personal choices like an abortion. The state is inserting itself more and more into family life. This isn't just a privacy issue, it's a values issue. Medical care for children should not be separated from parental guidance, especially in matters with serious physical, emotional, and moral consequences. I have witnessed on more than one occasion a liberal female legislator make the statement openly, "We need to protect these children from their parents and their beliefs." In contrast, classical Christian schools uphold the primacy of family. At Legacy, the family is not seen as a barrier to a child's well-being, but a cornerstone. I want to be very clear. In Delaware, we have incredible, dedicated public school teachers, men and women who care deeply about their students, who put in long hours and who show up every day with passion and creativity and a desire to make a difference. But they are laboring within a system that no longer prioritizes academic excellence, moral clarity, or parental authority. The system is increasingly governed by trends, not truth. We must ask ourselves, what is the purpose of education? Is it to equip young minds with the knowledge and skills to think critically, engage meaningful in their communities, and build successful futures? Or is it to conform them to the latest ideological trends that shift with the political winds? At one time, public education was all about the fundamentals: reading well, doing math without a calculator, and learning the discipline to succeed beyond the classroom. Today, it's about social experimentation at the expense of foundational learning. When we lower expectations, remove accountability, and prioritize activism over academics, we fail not only our students, but our future as a society. As a public policy professional, I don't just look at what's happening, I ask why it's happening. And when I look at Delaware's public education system, I see a system in need of reorientation. But reorienting an entire system doesn't happen overnight. It happens in places like this, with parents who refuse to compromise, communities who refuse to be silent, and schools like Legacy that refuse to abandon the pursuit of truth. What schools like Legacy offer is not just nostalgia, it's restoration. A restoration of classical learning rooted in the belief that truth exists and it can be known, taught, and lived. But Legacy isn't just a classical school. It's a Christian classical school, and that distinction matters. Because at the heart of everything Legacy does is this truth from Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. That verse is more than a motto, it's the foundation. It shapes how subjects are taught, how discipline is approached, and how students are formed, not just academically, but spiritually. It's what sets Legacy apart from public schools and other private schools. This model of education is about shaping a generation that pursues truth over convenience, values wisdom over popularity, and recognizes that real freedom is found not in following every impulse, but in cultivating discipline and virtue. One of my favorite verses is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I know this verse is true, not just in principle, but in my own life. There was a time when I lost my way for many years, but the truth of God's word planted in my heart as a child never left me. It was that foundation that led me back to Christ and to the life he had prepared for me. As we close tonight, I want to encourage every parent, teacher, and supporter of Legacy, the seed you're planting matters. Your faithfulness in the classroom, at home, in your daily life is shaping the next generation of believers. Wherever God places us, our calling remains the same: to stand firm in our faith, to live out his truth, and to let our lives point others to Christ. Thank you.